Good morning, and I'm going to start in Come Follow Me with the word I can help accomplish the Lord's will as I follow his counsel. So after Joseph Smith died, the saints were driven from Nauvoo. They faced a 1,300-mile journey through a harsh wilderness. Brigham Young, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, worried about how the saints would survive the trek. In a temporary settlement called Winter Quarters, he pleaded for guidance. The Lord's response was recorded in section 136. We're going to look now. Um, this next quote we'll look in. This shall be our covenant in Revelations in context. We'll get back to that. But by helping the saints remember their conduct in their journey was important as their destination, the revelation transformed the westward migration from an unfortunate necessity into an important shared spiritual experience. Keep this in mind as you study 136. What counsel do you find that could help turn a difficult trial of your life into an important spiritual experience? I think that's a good one to remember. What counsel could do you find could turn a difficult trial of your life into an important spiritual experience? And we'll try to keep that in mind as we go through the actual scriptures. Um, you might ponder this counsel, um, how this counsel can help you accomplish the Lord's will in your own life, um, as it helped the early saints in their travels. Now I'm just going to flip to This Shall Be Our Covenant. What I think I'll do, so much in here. Remember, I said I was going to make these short, and I've looked back over the last couple of days, and they're not that short. There's so much in here. I hope you're getting this from the scriptures as you're reading them. That you can find the background. Remember, the Doctrine and Covenants is a doctrine and covenants. It's not a narrative. It is a condensed version of what the Lord wants us to know. And to tell you the truth, it's easier to read the Book of Mormon or uh, the New or Old Testament because they're written narratively. Well, the Doctrine and Covenants is the Doctrines and Covenants written, but when you put the narrative to it, all of a sudden there's so much meat to be had. Um, Probably good they didn't put it all in because there's so much in there. Um, I don't think I'll read very much of this. I'll just read the first part and then leave the rest for the next 4 days that we have. In February 1846, Brigham Young led a hand-picked vanguard of people of 300 men across ice-filled river, Mississippi River, and I have to say that that is what we often will see is that ice-filled river. But remember, they were going from February till September, and most of that time the river wouldn't have been filled with ice. It just happened to be when they were crossing, and you'll see pictures of that a lot. You'll see pictures of them crossing in this icy river. Not always was that the case. The Mississippi River was not very iced over very often, from what I understand. Um, and during the summer and when most people would have gone, uh, they didn't have that problem. It didn't mean there wasn't a lot of problems because you take um, 300 men and try to cross a ice-filled river. It's going to take a bit. Um, their plan was to reach a place of refuge in the Rocky Mountains that summer, um, and plant crops and feed those who would follow that year. So that's 1846. It didn't happen. But the ensuing months didn't go as according to plan. It never does it? No matter how we think we're going to have our lives, it doesn't always happen the way we think it's going to happen. And things happen in your life that you don't ever expect. I didn't expect to be in my 50s and have a stroke and a heart attack, um, especially because I've always been quite active. And most of the questions they asked me, like, do you smoke? Do you drink? Well, no, I don't. And then they look at me weird, like, oh, then why are you here almost? We expected that, but no, I haven't had anything that would have suggested that I was going to have that, but I did. And sometimes we have those things in our lives. We have these moments, and they may not seem, you might think, oh, this is not very big, but it is to you, and that's important. Um, Maybe it's your education, maybe it's your job or something like that, that it's not going as you thought it would, you know. And it's good to know that sometimes even the best laid plans are not met. One thing is heavy rains rose the streams, and uh, where it would have been rolling plains in Iowa was just muddy quagmires. And then um, there was this thing, rather than 300 people that was just going to go and get things settled, over 1,000 saints decided to come and join them. So 1,300, I guess, um, partly prepared for the journey, insisted on joining the advance company, longing to be close to the church leaders at a time of uncertainty. That kind of was understood. Um, and so winter quarters became quite heavy. I mean, I think it was probably the best place to be, but go somewhere and take 1,000 people and say you've got to live here now and see how well you do, with that. It just um must have been hard. And besides that, they had um 3,000 people were at winter, or 7,000 people were at winter quarters by the fall of 1846, and 3,000 in other locations. That's 10,000 people. Where are you going to put 10,000? Let's just take all these 10,000 people, put them somewhere where there's not been anything before, and how they're going to live. So the conditions, you can see how it must have been difficult for them. And some did experience malnutrition, exposure, and a crisis of faith. Well, what are you going to do? You're thinking, um, and I have nothing against that, because I see people having a crisis of faith, just who's doing very well. What's going to happen if you're put out of your home for the third, fourth time, fifth time, and you're trying to just survive? It's got to be hard. But I want to point out that most everybody follows, even though it's hard. And think about Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, and how he must have felt. He felt like a father with a great family of children around him. And he says that his responsibilities was like a 25-ton weight. It says that by January 1847, he had lost so much weight that his clothes no longer fit. And then comes the revelation. And I think it is January 14th. It was the word and the will of the Lord, which we'll get into in a second. And um, it just tied everything together. And I think when I've been reading it, I've gone, what am I going to learn from this? What am I going to, and that's what we're just saying. How can I live a more covenant life? Um, um, but I think sometimes we forget, and this is what it says here. Some have assumed the revelation was simple how-to guide for organizing pioneer companies and have underestimated the role it played in refocusing Brigham Young in the church. I think hopefully you're feeling that. Um, the last couple of days, it just felt like everything was discombobulated a little bit, not quite coherent. But here he's saying, we know what we're supposed to do now. Um, By helping the saints remember that their conduct on the journey was as important as their destination, the revelation helped transform westward migration from an unfortunate necessity to an important spiritual experience, which I believe is what we had in Come Follow Me just now. I think that was the quote. I'm going to leave it there and get right into the scriptures. We'll read more later. But let's get right into Doctrine and Covenants 136. The word and the will of the Lord given through the President Brigham Young at Woodquarters, the help of Israel, Omaha Nation on the west bank of the Missouri River near Council Bluffs, Iowa. I just want to point out, it takes 3 years um, before they even think about um, President Young, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, becoming president of the church. I remember this last conference, President Nelson had passed away just a few days earlier, and there was sort of this anticipation, at least with me, that are they going to call President Oaks to be prophet at the conference where we have um, all the solemn assembly and everything, so that he can just take the lead? Instead, they said, no, we're just going to be the 12 apostles. And I'm thinking, we've gotten so used to it transitioning so fast that we sometimes forget that the Lord still leads this church through the 12 apostles as well, and that He's got His leadership. And then President Oaks was sustained afterwards, so they just followed the same thing that President Nelson had already set up, rather than calling a different prophet at that time, so they could follow his word even though he wasn't there. And I thought that was helped me um, feel a little bit closer. So he's at Winter Quarters, the camp of Israel, Omaha Nation, which was the Indian name of the area, was the Omaha Nation, on the west bank of the Missouri River near Council Bluffs, Iowa. Um, the word and will of the Lord concerning the camp of Israel on their journeyings to the west. I love the fact that he starts out as the word and the will of the Lord concerning the camp of Israel. He has the guidance that he needs to lead the church, and the Lord is establishing that it is his word, not Brigham Young's. even though some of these principles were first already in play, they were this sort of things that happened in um, the Camp of Zion, or the when Joseph led the camp to Missouri, is the same sort of thing, but it had to be known who it was that it's coming from, that it is the word and will of the Lord. Let all the people of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and those journeying with them, because not everybody was going to be members. Some of them were husbands, wives, children, whatever, that didn't feel the need to join the church. So and probably even others that just felt that they should travel with them. I'm not sure. Um, be organized into companies with the covenant and promise to keep all the commandments and statutes of the Lord our God. Notice everyone, not just churches members, but if you're going to travel with us, you need to live by the rules that we've got, and it's the commandments and statutes of our Lord our God that we have here. If you want to go with other companies, going to Oregon or whatever, go ahead. But if you want to be with us, this is how we're organizing. Let the companies be organized with captains of hundreds, captains of fifties, captains of tens, with a president and his two counselors at their head, under the direction of the 12. That's how it was organized. And did it work perfectly? Not always, but it worked. And this shall be a covenant that we will walk in all the ordinances of the Lord. Let each company provide themselves with teams, wagons, and provisions, clothing, and other necessities for the journey that they can. So these captains and the presidency that would be over each of these um, groups would look after making sure that they had all those provisions. Um, when the companies are organized, let them go with their might to prepare for those who tarry. So let's look at the company a little bit. It's 100 people, and if you look at wards and branches today, wards are about, I think it's something like 100 to 200 people in a ward, and we have um, the bishopric, we have the elders quorum, we have the relief society, we have the young men's, young women's, all of those presidencies working together to look after each one, and then we have each member looking after each other as we go forward, and we do something. So when we talk about companies, I don't mind if we look a little bit and say, is our ward doing this sort of thing? Are we organizing? Are we looking after each other? Are we making sure everybody's got the necessities they need? Um, we might not need teams and wagons and things, but some people may need somebody to sit with them for a while, or other things. Um, and we do that through ministering, especially, and we've got people that will help us do those things with our bishops and our um, other ward members. When the companies are organized, let them go with their might to prepare for those who tarry. So some people will be staying back, and especially the Vanguard company needs to go forth and organize as much as they can, so that each company that comes afterwards they're more organized, and we can do that in our wards and stakes. Let each company with their captains and presidents decide how many can go next spring, when then choose out a sufficient number of able-bodied and expert men to take teams, seed, and farming utensils. In our wards, we can do that with um, choosing out who's helping and make sure that we're helping those people who are less fortunate as well to go as pioneers. There's the first use of pioneers to prepare for putting in spring crops. Pioneers go before and they're to put in things, spring crops. They'll put it in, then they'll leave, and somebody else will come and they will take care of those crops and leave, and then somebody will come and harvest those crops. That's how they worked it. Let each company bear an equal proportion according to the dividend of their property, in taking the poor, the widows, the fatherless, the families of those who have gone into the army, that the cries of the widows and the fatherless come not up unto the ears of the Lord against this people. One of the very important things is that we do that in our wards and our stakes, is look after those people who need looking after. Let each company prepare houses and fields and for the raising of grain for those who are to remain behind this season. And this is the will of the Lord concerning his people. Let every man use all his influence and property to remove this people to the place where the Lord shall locate a stake of Zion. So he's still talking about Zion. He's saying, just because we've left Missouri doesn't mean we're not still a stake of Zion. And if ye do this with a pure heart, in all faithfulness, ye shall be blessed. You shall be blessed in your flocks, in your herds, in your fields, in your houses, in your families. Do these things. Do your uh, callings and your ministering and so forth, and the Lord's going to bless you. Go to the temple. These are the things we can do today. We might not be going across the plains, but we can still be missionaries. We can set things up for other people who come after us, by our faith, by doing our ministering and doing our callings the best we can. That is how we can do it. And I hope that you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving today. Um, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.